Hello, ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation. It's nice to be back from Mar-a-Lago, but I want to begin today with my Ukraine comments. I have a special show about Mar-a-Lago, which is next, and I'm proud to be sporting my Bulldog Media logo instead of my usual shirt and tie. I want to weigh in on Ukraine, and as always, what you expect of me, I'm going to give you some insights that aren't being given out there, what I've seen on the national commentary. Now, I pay attention to Fox, but I've yet to hear many people say what I'm about ready to say. And I'm going to lead with my two top ones. Number one, as we put up the American Communist 10 list, is this. Everybody knows that Joe Biden took a pass when he asked about isolating Russia from China. I just want to say this. Now is the time for this entire country to demand from the American Communist 10 that they sever their ties with China, because we all know what went down in Ukraine with Russia would never happen without China's wink and a nod and blessing. And what did their ambassador to the UN say? Oh, everybody needs to use restraint. Right. After they invade Ukraine, oh, everybody uses restraint. It is unbelievable. So it is now time. What is going to be LeBron James' excuse? What is going to be Big Tech's excuse? What's going to be all of their excuses? We now can connect the dots and say your continual support of the Communist Party, G, and China, your Hollywood movies, all of the American Communist 10, is directly responsible with what just happened in Ukraine. It's that simple. What are they going to say? Is the NBA going to continue to play footsie with China, Russia's buddy? Now, the second, now I have here 28 topics, but I'm leading with my best because they're totally original. Now, I asked my producer to put up a picture of John F. Kennedy. I am blown away that I seem to be the only person in America that would have played this Ukraine thing different. I would have played it like JFK played it. Now, I'm talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis. JFK had all kinds of options. One option was war, hot war. One option was do nothing. The option that he chose was a blockade. He chose a blockade around Cuba, and we had that moment in history where the Russian ship's coming, our blockade is there. What happened? They turned around. They didn't challenge the blockade. Was the world nervous? Yes. Now, for those of you that say, Bulldog, come on, Cuba's in our hemisphere, it's not the same. Are you kidding me? Look at the difference between 1961, okay, October of 1961, and today. You know, Cuba and Ukraine, are you kidding? The effects of that. And I also want to say that I'm going to be very specific what I would have done. I would have done one or both of these things. Now, if you think that I'm some kind of warmonger, I'm not a warmonger at all. At all. But here's what I would have done, and I am confident it would have worked. And it was a missed opportunity of epic proportions by our president and our country. And it's called lead. What do you think Putin would have done if the American government, the United States, and our NATO allies did this. And by the way, if any NATO ally didn't do it, shame on them. But here's what I would have done as president. I would have let Putin know. Well, by the way, the first thing I would have done, and this is so beyond stupid, the pretext that he's using is this coming into NATO. Well, we left that hanging. We should have made it very clear to him, forget about NATO. Remember, you can go back and see my show last week. I said, hey, if saying Ukraine's not going to be in NATO solves this problem or removes that pretext, remove the pretext. We don't need Ukraine in NATO. We're going to protect them anyway. But if you don't think, I want you to consider Romania, Hungary, Romania, Poland. Russia now is one step closer. And by the way, Putin always uses this bullshit about saying, well, this is too close to me, this is too close to me. Well, is the reverse not true, Vladimir? So here's what I would have done. Sorry for the too much prologue. I would have said to Putin, we are sending, one or both of these, we are sending in our tanks on the border. American tanks divisions, NATO tank divisions around the border of Ukraine. We're defending this. And or say, our air forces are going to patrol the Ukrainian space. By the way, all of this done with the permission of Zelensky in Ukraine. We are going to patrol and control the airspace of Ukraine. And now you're going to say, Eric, that's too big a risky chicken. Are you kidding me? What do you think Putin would do if there were tanks and or NATO airspace control over Ukraine? Putin would not have invaded. He would not have. Because he knows what that does. You see, it is the age-old, this is why I get so mad at people that just don't study history, no history. I studied Russian history. I studied USSR history in college and beyond. And anybody knows what the Soviet Union's all about, what Putin's all about, the historical significance of Eastern Europe. And you know what? What I just described is now going to have to be done, and it's already started in place with Hungary, Poland, Romania, and the other, Lithuania, and those other breakaway countries from the Soviets. We are going to have to do that anyway. Why not do it when we still have Ukraine? Why not do it while we still have Ukraine? Not one person in this country on the national commentary is talking about what I just outlined. I can't believe it. And by the way, it's for deterrence. We all know that it's in history. Peace through strength. War, weakness. And what do you think Xi would do about Taiwan if we did that in Ukraine? Now the opposite is happening. So those are two major points I've been dying to make ever since I was flying back from Mar-a-Lago, that nobody in this country on these national commentator shows are talking about. Let's now hold the American 10 accountable with China and their role in this. Number two, we missed the opportunity to do what I just outlined, JFK style. Do we not learn from World War II? Hitler, just give me the Sudetenland and I'll let it be. Oh, I just want Czechoslovakia, that's all, that's all. Well, now I want Poland too. I mean, do these people, these are people that are running our country in the White House. Do they not read history? Do they not know history? God, I wish I was president of the United States. Then it's the energy issue. 230 million barrels the Americans bought last year from Russia. How does that make sense? We can be energy independent, and we're buying oil from Iran and Russia. It is incredible. And I just want to say this to all you voters out there that may not be on our team. How do you justify we can be energy independent and we're buying freaking oil from Russia? How is that justified? It's ridiculous. And then another new issue that, another original idea that I had, you go back and watch the film. I've been saying this for years. We should take our military, and defend our borders and our ports. Cost effective, it's beautiful for our military because they're stateside for them and their families. You rotate them out. We could stop what's going on in our border like that. You know, build the wall, but without even the wall, send our military down there. By the way, our soldiers are getting paid anyway. They're on the freaking payroll. Put them to work at the borders and the ports. Protect this country. Nobody ever talks about that. The sanctions. We have Biden saying the sanctions wouldn't work. Kamala said the sanctions would have worked. By the way, you don't think Putin doesn't know that sanctions would be coming? He doesn't care about the sanctions. And how do you justify the SWIFT banking system? Those of you that don't know, it's the banking system that allows these or Russia to grab their money from Europe, grab their money from the United States. It's those access. We could have cut that off. And sanctions against Putin himself are on the table. What? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And folks, let me tell you something. George Bush, 43, let Putin take Georgia. Obama and Biden let him take Crimea. Joe Biden is letting him take Ukraine. What part of this country, what part of Europe or the old Soviet Union was taken under Trump, who's colluding with Russia? Really? Really? It is evil. You got to watch my Mar-a-Lago video with my discussion I had with President Trump. We now have global interests taking, and rich people's interest, taking over American interests and our allies' interests. It is sick. The other thing is, everybody's saying, well, we don't know what Putin's plans are. Where does it, you know, I like Bill Hemmer, but Bill Hemmer kept saying, you know, the question is, what do we know? How do we know? Folks, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you, I'm going to use this as an anecdote that I shared with my daughter. If a child is standing on top of a stool and a chair, a small child, rather than hope the child doesn't fall off, you should assume the child is going to fall off. There are some things, life and death, or severe injury, that you have to assume and defend against them by assuming. For example, you don't want to grab a wire assuming that it's not hot. You should assume that electric wire is hot. We should assume, and we should have been assuming this from the beginning, that Putin will be aggressive and act accordingly. We can't sit around and, what is Putin going to do? We need to assume Putin's going to want more and act accordingly. and all the sanctions and all the extra movement now into NATO countries is after the barn doors already been left open, horses run out, then they close the freaking barn door. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Apparently, Germany has vetoed some of these sanctions, and they got some explaining to do. Of course, Nord Stream, apparently they're all for. But, I mean, cutting that off. Now, I want to hit the anti-Trumpers. Karl Rove in the Wall Street Journal yesterday did a little column about Mitt Romney was right about Russia. By the way, Mitt Romney's little comment took a stab at Trump's America First, too, about, Russia take back their 1980s politics, I want to tell you something. Trump's America first doesn't mean nobody else. It's America first. It doesn't mean nobody else. They manipulate that so much, like Trump was an isolationist. No, he wasn't. He was just America first. Now, this is what cracks me up. Karl Rove took a shot at Trump, just like Romney did, relative to that. Total BS. Is there anyone in America that thinks what went down yesterday would have happened with Trump? The proof's in the pudding. What is past is prologue. Shakespeare. What happened with China, North Korea, Iran, and Russia when Trump was president? They kept to themselves. They didn't mess with us, did they? Now, another original thought. I'm just full of original thoughts. You know what? One day I'm going to go national, and I'll get to share this with the whole country. Instead, it's just Bulldog Nation for now. I want to share something with you. Nobody talks about this either. When you're Trump got it. Trump got it. They used to attack him for it when he'd say, "Geez, my friend," Kim Jong-un's my friend, that kind of stuff. When you're dealing with tyrants such as Iran, Putin, Kim Jong-un, there is a weird balance that you have to have. And that balance is being friendly, disgusting, being friendly, holding them to account. You have to do it. When you mess up that balance, bad things happen one way or the other. For example, all those people that want these sanctions to level Russia, Lindsey Graham says, let's devalue the ruble, destroy the ruble, all this other stuff. Folks, I want to tell you something. What's Putin do if we destroy Russia economically? He gets more desperate like a cornered dog. You can't do that either. It is a weird balance. And we've missed the opportunity to do it best. That weird balance that you have to do with tyrants. Here's another thing that just cracks me up. And it sounds like big law firms, when they deal with us plaintiffs' attorneys, they always say, well, that's a non-starter. That demands a non-starter. We can't talk to you about that. We're talking about war here, folks. Why would Joe Biden, our president, say, I'm not going to talk to Putin? I'd be on the phone with Putin right now. What the hell you doing, you lying SOB? What's going on here? Why do you stop talking to the guy? Did JFK stop talking to Khrushchev? No. The communication saved the world from nuclear war. God, why are national commentators talking about this? Here's another one. Nobody's talking about this. I've seen all these defense people come on and they'll say, well, what we need to be doing is we need to be arming Ukraine, blah, 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 blah. When has arming a country ever freaking worked? Except World War II with England. And we armed Russia too. People forget that. Folks, I want to tell you something. We try arming Afghanistanis. It doesn't work. You try arming Iraqis. It doesn't work. You don't get that. You can't give these people arms. It never works. Here is something that I hope is going on. Nobody talks about this. I'm sorry to keep saying that I'm hoping is going to go on with Ukraine. First off, giving out 10,000 rifles to Ukrainians in Kiev, really, I don't think it's going to do any good with tanks. What I've witnessed yesterday from just watching the news coverage is it looks like there is just the Ukrainian military has just got pockets of resistance where they're doing some good. Because it looks like to me that the word coming from Russia is they just don't think the Ukrainians are going to fight en masse. I mean, come on, you got tanks rolling into cities and people are sitting there watching. You don't have people hunkered down getting shot at. By the way, here's another thing I would have done if I was Zelensky. Another original thought that I think would be so badass. Remember what Winston Churchill did in World War II with Dunkirk? Created a new box, thought out a new box, sent every possible ship there. What did we do in World War II when they blocked off Berlin? Marshall Plan. brought in packages. Here's what I would have done. This would have been really cool. You know what Zelensky should have done? He should have had his entire freaking military, every tank, every javelin, everything, circle Kiev. Circle it. Defend Kiev at all costs with everything you got, including inviting anybody from any part of Ukraine, come to Kiev. Now you might think, oh my God, no. Make it a siege. The world would watch a siege of Kiev. What would be worldwide public opinion then? With a siege going on in Kiev. We could even fly in supplies to them. I mean, defend Kiev at all costs. All costs. Help them defend Kiev at all costs. Because if one city, the capital, were not to fall, you're alive and well. That's where your government is. That's where nobody's talking about that. I'm not a military strategist, but I'm not stupid. I've studied some military history. That's what I would have done. Creative is F. Defend Kiev. I listened with great interest with Eric Prince last night on Fox News. He brought up the idea that we are mothballing all these planes, all these tanks, all this equipment, and we could have just given them to Ukraine. I mean, it's like silly. They're gonna be parked. I agree with that, even though arming them usually doesn't work. And then what happens, like in Afghanistan, all our hardware falls into the enemy's hands. So even Eric Prince, who I think is a pretty smart guy, I think he's wrong about that. Here's another thing I was wondering about. Another plan that Ukraine could have, another original idea, nobody's talking about this either in the national commentators, is let Russia invade, let them get sucked in to the city. Folks, going into a country and then controlling it is two different things. Maybe the game plan is, come on in, Russia. Come on in. Distribute all the weapons, all the guns, and make their life miserable. Make it another Afghanistan for Russia. I mean, just going to that country, controlling that country is two different things. Maybe Ukraine can be Russia's next Afghanistan. And how about the people in Russia protesting against this, and Putin wants to knock them down? You watch. That protest, unlike the convoys, the media will get behind those protests. By the way, I got to bring this up. There was an agreement called the Budapest Agreement where Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons. You know why Kim Jong-un and Iran want a nuclear weapon? They know if they got a nuclear weapon, they're safe. We made Ukraine give up their nuclear weapons. We were supposed to defend them. Did we? No. I might be one of the few people that is ashamed that we're not defending Ukraine. We made them give up their nuclear weapons. Oh, come on in, Russia. Come on in, Russia. My final thing, which is just hysterical, and you've seen it, is John Kerry. John Kerry is worried this is going to be a distraction of climate change and actually said he hopes Putin stays on board with climate change. That's where we are as a country right now. It is god-awful. Joe Biden goes out there and makes those speeches. It's just his lips moving. He's weak as hell. Nobody believes anything he says. Nobody fears anything he says. It's unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation, please share this with everybody you know, because it's definitely some original thoughts that you're not getting anyplace else in the entire country.